Okay, so hello everyone. I think it's 11 a.m. sharp right now, so we can start. My name is Mark. I'll be your moderator for today, and I'm also a team member at EcoNights, which is basically a not-for-profit environmental organization based in Tamatun, Dr. Ismail. We firstly just want to welcome everyone here, as well as to thank you all so much for your participation. Today's webinar is titled Practicing the 5 Rs in an Economically and Logistically Challenging Environment During COVID-19. This was the most voted for topic and is part of our ongoing School of Sustainability online series, where we want to empower sustainable living even in today's realities of social distancing and restricted movement. So today's webinar will be presented by Dr. Yasmin, who on top of her 20 years of experience in sustainable community development and NGO leadership, go ahead now. Yeah, so today's presentation will be presented by Dr. Yasmin. And before I hand it over to Yasmin to deliver a presentation, I'm just going to quickly run through the program structure as well as some small house rules. Basically, Yasmin will present her views on today's topic for approximately 15 to 20 minutes. We will then have a 10-minute Q&A session before ending the program. For the Q&A, do write in any question you have relevant to the webinar topic using the Zoom chat box below at any time during today's session. We will also compile all the questions asked and direct them to Yasmin after the end of the presentation. But do not panic if we are unable to answer your question in time. After the session is over, we'll be sending you a thank you email containing the answers to your specific question, as well as the presentation slides and a feedback form to that very same email. Lastly, to allow all participants to focus on the speaker and to limit any interference, we do kindly ask you to disable your microphone and video functions during today's program. You can also view the session from speaker view. This way you can focus solely on Yasmin as well as the shares that she will be sliding. And if you do happen to be cut off from today's session at any point, be sure to check your internet connection and then rejoin us using the same Zoom link provided. For any technical difficulties, do notify us using the same chat box and we will get to you promptly. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Yasmin now for a presentation. Over to you, Yasmin.
Thank you, Mark, for the kind introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking time, your precious time on a Saturday morning to join me. And for this session, it will be the School of Sustainability's webinar. And I am honored to be presenting a topic that many of you have actually chosen yourself. We ran a poll a couple of weeks earlier, and this topic actually came up ranked #1. And I think many of us are more familiar with the 3 Rs, which I think you can name. Reduce, reuse, recycle. We're adding a little bit of twist here by giving you 5 Rs. Why we're doing this is technically the entire process of dealing with waste, we're taught to end up recycling most of our waste. But what we like to do is encourage you to look at the other Rs that can be done creatively at home, especially now when we're more or less stuck at home during the pandemic. And these are some of the things that I have also practiced with my children, my 2 daughters at home. And I think it would be something fun to share with you so that can inspire you to do the same at home. So I'll jump straight into the 5 Rs. As I mentioned earlier, in school we are taught the basic 3 Rs, reduce, refuse, and reuse. But in this case, we feel that before we even end up in the process of generating less waste. So if you look at the little circular diagram on your right hand side, I'm going to start with refuse first for this session. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can activate a little bit of reduction at home when it comes to waste, and some creative ways to reuse and repurpose recyclables at home. And eventually, then finally, if you cannot do anything about it, you cannot refuse, you cannot reduce, reuse, repurpose, yes, God forbid, we will all then recycle our items. But I think many of you are also aware that in this current pandemic, a lot of recycling centers are also shut down because we want to protect the workers as well. So we pretty much have to look at the other Rs to explore. So I'm going to dive straight into refuse. I think one of the things that I feel that if I don't bring these items back home, then I don't have to deal with recycling them. So a simple thing that I do very commonly is to ensure that I pack my car with a lot of cloth bags. I'm a bit of a Nazi with it. I also pack my husband's car with a lot of cloth bags so that he has no reason to say that he needs to take plastic bags. And I have never run out of cloth bags. I think with all sorts of events, whether you go to a shopping mall, go to a conference, I always end up collecting a lot more cloth bags. So one of the things is, if you don't want to end up with plastic bags at home, say no to them at the shop, and please end up bringing your cloth bags. Another thing is also panic buying. I think I talked about it a couple of months ago when the pandemic was announced. Everyone was just rushing to make sure that you stock up. But then when we come home, and for me, at least for my family, I realized that we actually have quite a lot of things stocked up, but we're just panic buying unnecessarily. That's really not fair, guys, because you're actually limiting the opportunity for other people to obtain these things as well. And also refuse freebies with unnecessary packaging. I like chicken rice. The other day I went to tap out chicken rice, so guilty. I had a plastic container, but refused the plastic bag, so I put in my cloth bag. But the challenge is they will always give you these plastic cutleries, which really are quite useless when you're eating chicken rice and you're trying to debone your chicken. And it doesn't really end up getting used. So I actually make it a habit, and my family does that as well, that we refuse these kind of cutlery so that we can minimize us bringing it back home and us being responsible of being disposing it. And I think it also helps educate the seller as well. And thirdly, buy what you need, not what you want. For us, my kids are in charge of making a list at home of what we need to buy for groceries. And before they do that, simply make a list. They actually go and check around the house to say, okay, we still have 2 more cans of sardines, so we don't need another one. We need to finish those 2 first because it has an expiry date to purchase the next one. And I'm sure many of you are guilty of suddenly finding things in your pantry which has already expired. So I think that's really our negligence and ignorance when we don't keep a good stock check of what we have at home, and we end up buying other things that are quite similar to what we have. So consume what you have first before you end up buying. I've mentioned this about, and if you're a fan of ordering takeouts, my eldest girl is a super fan of Grab food. And there are some, I think, vendors that will ask you whether you want plastic cutleries or not. But I think you can always note to them also that you don't need these items so that you can have less of this at home. I think I've covered most of the things. It makes sense. It's a new norm now. I feel very inspired and encouraged that I see more people doing things like bringing their cloth back and getting your own containers when they tap out food. And also when you tap out food with your own containers, I think when you're done with it or you've got leftovers, it's also easy to just close the lid and keep it straight in the fridge so you don't have to, saline your plate so many times. Let's move on to the next R, reduce. So if you cannot refuse, let's aim at reducing what you're using at home. I like to embrace minimalism, but things don't really necessarily go that way all the time. I think many of us are caught in a whirlwind of sales and we want a same item of different colors. But in the last few years, I've learned that I have more than enough and what I need. And I've also come to terms, and I think maybe maturity has to do with it. I'm quite stable in my selection of fashion, clothes, what I need to be fulfilled on a daily basis. So for me, the less is more. And during the pandemic, it was a great opportunity to actually look at what was around home that we can reduce. So one of the things during the lockdown that I find doing a lot at home is cooking a lot, because you can't go out and eat. Restaurants are not open. So we do end up using a bit more gas, electricity, because we're basically cooking 3 or 4 meals a day. And what we have ended up with is a lot of kids go to school, we go to work. Maybe once a day you've got to deal with food waste from dinner, leftovers from dinner. But during COVID, it's kind of hard. Every meal you may end up with leftovers, and then you have your onion skins, your whatever fruit peels, that kind of thing. So it's important to manage how you purchase these items so that you don't end up throwing things that were expired just because you didn't use it efficiently. So one of the things that I would encourage you to do if you want to look at reducing throwing the amount of food waste out is properly planning your meals. One thing I've learned during COVID is we cannot go to the grocery shop every day. So we would have to plan when we go out and ensure that when we do go out, we have sufficient supplies for, say, a week. And buying green vegetables, they don't last that long unless if you keep it properly. So what I do is I buy the green vegetable or potatoes or terong, brinjal, and what we do is as a family we cook the green leafy ones first. So for the first few days in the week we'll be eating the lettuce, the salads and all that, and then eventually consume vegetables that can tahan a little bit more longer in the fridge. So this way I get to utilize all my perishable items properly without having like day 6 it's like my kailan is already layu and that kind of thing. So help plan them. And if you should be familiar with your family's appetite and portion as well. So proportionate your food accordingly so that you don't have excess. And if you do have excess, and this is what I've learned, I pack it up neatly and send it to my security guard down the road. Because, I mean, if you're not going to eat it and it's still fresh and warm, might as well share a meal with someone else. And another thing is, of course, smart shopping tips. Like I said just now, to be a smart shopper, you need to be aware what you're shopping for at home, and you need to be doing a stock check of what you have. I think many of us also are guilty. After a year, and then you clean your fridge, then you see a condensed milk that has been open for 6 months, not utilized, and nothing's coming out, it's all hardened. So that's really, really wastage because it's just not the condensed milk inside, but it's also the packaging outside. So again, plan what you do by making sure that you are a more conscious consumer. By becoming a more conscious consumer, you're actually doing a lot more for sustainability. I love composting. I wasn't perfect when I started it, but I've been practicing outdoor composting for about 7 years. I have to confess, the first 2 times I failed miserably, but I had really, really good guidance. I had a really good composting guru to guide me along the way. And now I'm proud to say that all my 1-week-old rice, my bread yang dah moldy, sometimes the soup that I like to make a Chinese soup. So you have your red dates, your kimchi. If you cannot finish it, your ginger, strain it. Don't add water into your compost bin. Too much water will make your compost bin get ruined. And get these items into your outdoor composting bin. If you like to know how you can get a composting bin or purchase one, talk to Mark or any of our officers that are logged on right now, because we do sell a 60-liter compost bin in our office, and we actually run workshops to teach people how to compost your food scraps in your backyard. And this is the thing, it's hard staying at home on days that are really hot. It's so hard to stop switching on the air conditioning. So I'm guilty of that because we're all in our laptops in the dining table, and we're all doing our work. Some are doing lessons. My husband and I are doing work. So I have to confess electricity consumption has increased. But what we do now mindfully is to ensure that other parts of the house are also not switched on when we're not there. And I think it's a habitual thing, which I hope my family can uphold as well. Another thing is, while I'm a fan of energy saving things, I don't really think you need to spend a lot to be green at home. If you can change a little bit and tweak a bit of your behavior, that goes a long way. But if you like to spend, because we like to shop, getting your 5-star energy efficient appliances or energy saving bulbs help too. Actually, recently 2 bulbs blew up in my bedroom, and we got the energy saving ones as replacements. They're a little bit more expensive, but then I think it saves you money in the long run and reduces your carbon emission. Let's go to reuse. I'm a fan of reuse and the other R that's coming up next, simply because I see my kids doing it a lot at home, and also I like the creativity that comes with this particular R. So we end up with things like this: containers, glass bottles. I end up with a glass bottles because I buy a lot of cold pressed juice. I'm guilty about it. But what I do with some of these glass bottles is I wash it, clean it, and I pack my herbs in it, label it so that I can reuse it as containers. Newspapers as well, clothing, packaging, especially paper packaging when you do takeouts. So these are some of the items which we often see at home. And here are some ideas how you can think about reusing them. So,
Sorry to interrupt you, Yasmin. Just want to let you know you have about 5 minutes left on your presentation. Thank you.
oh, okay, I have 2 more hours. So for reuse, I think it's great because it really ends up with turning an eyesore stuff that's stuck, packed in the corner into something that is useful. Ideally, you can also look at donating and decluttering some of your items. During COVID, I actually went through a lot of things in my cupboard and books and clothing, and we actually donated quite a bit to the needy communities. Repurpose is kind of cool because you can actually make a lot of things from the kind of solid waste you collect at home. I do collect paper, cardboard boxes, colored paper, because I realized that during art classes for my little girl, the teacher actually encourages you to bring things that are unused at home for art. So I keep a lot of these things because I often end up supplying not just my daughter's needs for school, but also some of her friends. It's handy dandy. Here are some creative ways how egg cartons can be initial planting plots. Remember that you have planting plots. My daughter loves to do this, and then she ends up leaving it under the sun and the pokok will die. But so if you're going to do this, pay attention to what you're doing. Plants are life too. Don't waste them. The last R, Mark, I hope you're proud of me, managed to make it on time. Recycle. Not my most favorite thing to do because, you know, I kind of feel guilty because some of these items, some will get to recycle depending who your recycle is. Some will get reused and repurposed. But oftentimes it will get end up in our landfill. So try to avoid recycling. But if you need to, yes, it's better than not doing anything and throwing your waste anywhere. But be mindful of how you recycle as well. At home, I don't mix or campur my electronic and battery waste with recyclable items. This is because electronic waste and batteries have chemicals inside. I put it in a cookie jar. It's a plastic jar. And don't reuse this jar once you've kept batteries in it. I think there was a time where after 6 months I kept batteries and I went and checked it out. There was already like orangey, whitish liquid in there. I suspect it's toxic, so don't put your hands in there and don't reuse that container. Okay, so because as I mentioned earlier, a lot of recycling facilities are closed, including the Econites recycling, community recycling area. The reason is because we need to be mindful the workers are also worried about contracting COVID by touching a lot of the plastics. We don't know where it has been, right? Of course, we trust that you are all COVID free. So if you're unable to recycle as freely as before, we hope that with these 4 R's we have demonstrated that we can encourage you to look at refusing, reducing, reusing, and repurposing first without the need to recycle. Whew, that was all done in one breath, and over to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you so much, Yasmin, for that very informative and engaging session.
Yeah.
So far, no questions have actually come in from the participants yet. Just a friendly reminder, if you do have any questions at any point, do feel free to send it in via the Zoom chat and we'll address it as best as you can. But maybe just to start, we can start with the following question. So Yasmin, due to the current COVID-19 pandemic, there's been a staggering increase in the production and usage of hand sanitizers, most of which come in plastic bottles and can thus contribute to plastic waste. So the question is there a way for us to create awareness on this issue? And at the same time, how do we strike that balance between environmental sustainability and public health and safety? Thank you.
Well, I think you've got to weigh your options on things like that. At this particular moment, I think hand sanitizers are very critical because it can save lives. You can opt for buying refills so that you can minimize the amount of bottles you bring back home. Maybe opt for a brand that offers you the opportunity to buy refill packs for your hand sanitizer. So even if you end up, and my mom makes her own hand sanitizer, I can't remember with what, but it was a bunch of essential oils. In the end of the day, so she's looking for a dispenser because you need to dispense it into your hand, right? So I think it's something unavoidable, but the idea is to be smart. to look at minimizing the number of bottles. So I would probably go with buying a brand that has refillables. And again, the refillable is also plastic. As long as you're not throwing it into your general bin and ending up in a tong sampah outside and God knows where it's going, I think you're on the right step already. It's a tricky question.
Okay, thank you for that. So we just got a question that came in for yourself. Basically, is cloth mask still a good option during this COVID-19 pandemic?
I don't know what kind of cloth mask you're using. I use a cloth mask simply because I noticed after the first week I'm disposing, like every time I go out, I wear it for maybe 2 times and I end up disposing it. But my cloth mask has a PM 2.5 filter insert. So what I've done is I guess reduce what I'm throwing. I use the black color cloth mask. I wish I had it with me. And I buy the PM 2.5 inserts in it. The inserts last me, I use it for a week. I wash my cloth mask every couple of days, depending how often I go out. I think essentially it's reducing the amount of waste you're throwing. And I bought my cloth mask from someone who used old fabric, not old as in the pakai lah, but it's unused fabric that was discarded, right? So I felt very good when I knew that that cloth that was covering my mouth actually could have ended up in a landfill, but it became a cloth mask. So maybe I can share with you on the chat later where I got this cloth mask from, and I felt that the designer was making a really great effort at upcycling cloth into cloth mask, black cloth mask. I hope that helped answer your question.
Okay, thank you, Yasmin. Just to keep the questions coming, there's another one on, so due to the current movement restrictions, many people have also resorted to online shopping. And as we know, this involves a lot of plastic packaging that mostly cannot be recycled. So the question is, how can we make online purchasing and shopping more green and sustainable?
Mark, that's really a tough question because ever since the pandemic started, I've reached out on LinkedIn and Facebook asking people, can you recommend parcel packaging materials that are biodegradable? This is because my daughter has an online sustainable fashion shop and she really wants to keep her brand applying sustainability principles. So her biggest heartache is I want to tell my customer or provide my customer with alternative packaging so that it doesn't, too much plastics. And she has not found a solution. But what she has done is actually make her own packaging, which needs to be as sturdy and strong as the post-laju one. So she doesn't use the conventional plastic packaging from the logistics company. And I think what has helped is actually help create a very signature, distinctive feature of her fashion brand as well. For our answer for that, because some of your packaging comes in packaging, I really urge you to look at keeping it and reusing it or recycle it. At this moment, I don't think there is a solution, and I think it's important now to look at what sort of innovations are out there. I don't want to say stop online shopping, because how else will it make you happy if you're stuck at home? But be mindful of the quantity that you're consuming. I hope that helps. And for the audience that's listening in, we also would like to hear from you if you have some creative ways how you're dealing with waste at home. So whether it's after this call or in the chat box on your right or left hand side corner, you can take pictures, share with us what you've done, because I think most of you are actually as inspiring as well, and I think many of you are very creative at home. So if you have any ideas, please share it with us, and we would like to share it with more people.
Okay, right? Thank you, Yasmin. So we have about 5 minutes left, so hopefully maybe 1 to 2 more questions. One just came in. What is your advice to business owners and employees, maybe some of them who may be in this webinar, about taking extra effort to reduce plastic usage?
I think tapao is one of the things, especially in the office, right? You're so used to that. I don't know whether this is going to be convenient, and I don't know whether you guys are all on a full 9 to 5 schedule. Like for me, we're still encouraged to work from home. So on days that I go to the office, I pack my lunch along, and of course the pantry has forks and spoons. I think I also want to be safe instead of going to a public area to buy food, and I don't want to go downstairs to pick up a Grab food. Just wanted to be mindful and be resourceful. So that's one thing. Pack your lunch. pack your lunch in your own container, use your own cloth bag. I think that actually helps reduce a lot of wastage. And with your lunch, please make sure you finish it. Don't waste it, because that also contributes a lot to carbon emissions out there. I hope that is helpful. You can pack your snacks, or if you're lucky, like the guys at Econites, our kitchen is fully stocked. So if you're a boss of a company and you like to encourage your staff to be safe from getting infected and be in the office, maybe start talking with your employees on how you can arrange better lunch arrangements so that you can minimize people going in and out of the office so many times. Hope that was helpful.
Okay, thank you so much, Yasmin. So yeah, out of the interest of time, you probably have to end the webinar now. But yeah, just thank you so much for your presentation, Yasmin, as well as all the participants today. We really do appreciate your attendance.
Yeah, thank you to all the participants. Really, you are the real champions, and I really appreciate you guys logging in. I think this session will be recorded. We hope if your kids especially are interested in this particular aspect of sustainability, to share it with them and keep these ideas coming to us and what you'd like to see more on our webinar series under the school sustainability brand.
Okay, great, thank you. And
Bye,
just
guys.
a reminder.
Have a nice Saturday and have a nice weekend. Be mindful when you go take out your food.
Thank you so much, everyone. And just a reminder, do check your email after the session is over. We will be sending you a thank you email, as well as the presentation slides and the feedback form, just to hear what you thought about the event, as well as what could be improved. And also, if you'd like to keep updated of any upcoming programs, as well as to learn more about Econice and sustainable living, do visit our website at econice.org.my. Thank you again all, and do stay safe. Goodbye.
Thank you. Be safe. Wear your mask.